Thank you for joining me for another quick hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn. With me today, I have Dr. Cole Galloway, Rosalind Sedacca, and Brenda St. Louis. And I would like to talk about how would you handle a situation where you were asked to do something that went against your morals? Cole, can you kick us off, please?
Yes, I think it starts with don't trust myself. What do I know?
Mm,
I'm going to back rationalize anything that fits my emotions at the times. And
mm,
so, from a good community organizing base, I will seek out a diverse set of opinions and trust that in that diversity of sort of Venn diagram, that things will become clear. Because I know from my developmental psychology background, like moral reasoning is a slippery slope of I want to think I'm logical, but I ain't. But I still want to think it. So I don't trust myself in that situation. I need help.
mm.
I think that I like that having a diverse perspective added to what's going on. But for me, I kind of know if it's against what is aligned with me, and I may not know why. I may not have the full unpacking of it, but I have been asked to do things that are against my morals in the past, and I always think it's an opportunity to show someone what my morals are. And maybe it actually gives them the opportunity to question themselves. Because I think that, especially during this COVID time, for example, like there's something that's happening right now where people are getting these free QR codes to go into places that haven't been vaccinated. And I'm like, well, if you choose not to be vaccinated, then you got to live with the consequence of what that means. And they're
Own
trying
it.
to bend the rules, right? And I'm like, that's incongruent. And
Mm,
I could sit silently and not say anything, or I could say, that doesn't feel good for me. And I think it gives everyone an opportunity to check themselves personally as well when you speak up.
mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a time when that happens that I have to decide whether to stand up or step aside and make that decision. And sometimes you're making it relatively quickly, but I try to become aware of what I'm telling myself, listening to my own inner dialogue and discerning whether there's a real heartfelt space behind that in order to decide how much of myself I'm going to engage in this issue. Is it something that I could sideswipe and move on without getting involved on a deep emotional level? Or is this something that I really have to speak up and stand out about? And that, of course, is much more challenging. And so you want to choose your battles.
I think that's the hardest part when you have a situation where you're up against your morals, is making that choice. Is this something I'm going to walk away from? Is it something I'm going to go ahead and go with, or is it something I'm going to stand up against?
Yeah, I think we also have to keep in mind that there's the proximate, distal, or organizational aspect of this. Meaning, am I asking Robyn to do something or putting her in a situation over the next minutes, seconds, hours? That's I think that's an easier decision, like we've heard from the other panelists. Like I feel comfortable making those decisions. I think more and more people are realizing that systemically, in a job interview or in a career choice, are you placing yourself in a moral dilemma
Mm,
field? We're realizing, like, I work alongside for-profit healthcare. Now, on a Tuesday, if you're a physical therapist, nurse, physician, administrator in for-profit healthcare, you may not feel like you're being asked to do some moral decisions, but the fact that you're participating in for-profit healthcare is a
mm.
decision, and I think that's why I love this question. It's got some depth and breadth, and like many of your good questions, Robyn, it gets grayer the more we dig. I think that's just awesome.
Mhm.
When we think about someone asking you to do something that goes against your morals, it's like, what is the cost? Like, what is the opportunity cost? What is the personal, spiritual, energetic, or whatever cost that you have around it? And being in the financial industry, it's really interesting because there's a lot of people that will sell products that are maybe not the best for their client, but they get paid more, or they get the pressure to have to pay to sell these products to these people. And it's like, I can't do that. I know that that is a line for me. And I've chosen a path where I don't have to be beholden to anyone else. But as a result, I don't grow as big because I don't toe the line. You don't get all the benefits. So the opportunity cost is that I'm in integrity, but the other cost is that my business doesn't grow the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that question keeps coming up. What are the consequences for me, and what are the consequences if I'm not in integrity or candid about the way I feel? Sometimes it's easy to just want to avoid the issue and make excuses for something without standing up and creating a firm statement about what you believe and what you don't believe. So we're being tested, I think, more and more often in our culture now, because we're finding more issues even in Congress and legislatures where morality is becoming a questionable issue. And what are people doing about it? So again, looking within and saying, how would I be handling that situation? What approach would I be taking is a good way to at least get some value for ourselves, even if we can't deal with or change anything in situations beyond us.
I agree with that. And there's a relationship cost that comes with morality questions too, because if I choose to, like, this is my morality and this is not what I'm going to do, is it okay for me to say to the other person that's out of morality or doesn't have morals, and therefore you should have the same morals as I have, and asking me is incorrect?
I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine about people oversharing with me. Say I was at a dinner party and this person was sharing some really private information about her partner. And it was almost like there's this place of like, oh, I get to be the inside and get that information. But what would it look like? And I'm wanting to practice this, for me to say, I really don't feel like that's appropriate for me to hear if they're not here with you. And to stand in that. And what does that do to the relationship, right? It's interesting. It's a way, it can go so deep. As you were saying, Cole, there's so many layers to it.
Well, I think my first point of bringing back around to I check with other people. I think we've seen very publicly, it's always been there, but we've very seen hyper publicly now. You can find anyone to justify anything that you're thinking. The moral high ground has been flattened. As long as there are the Robyns in the world that are going to bring this up at the workplace, and I often say this on these quick hits, if we could only talk about this at the workplace, which I think is Robyn's focus, like, things will get better. We'll recreate that moral high ground, if you will, in a better way. But right now, you can find, I've heard cisgendered white rich folks say that they're oppressed. And people are going, yes. Well, oh, what? Huh?
Oh, and that's an interesting point too, is because you can create a moral high ground. Like, you can build up a mountain of trash and stand on it and look down at people.
That's right. As a divorce and co-parenting coach, my focus always comes back to the children. If you have a family and if you have kids and you're role models for them, then using these as examples and bringing up those questions at home is very helpful. What would you do? This is what mommy did. How would you have handled that? And asking these questions, because they're becoming more and more relevant. And when you talk about it at home and use TV shows or movies as examples of some of these criteria, it really makes our kids more sophisticated and aware that these are issues that are in our day-to-day life. And there are no easy suggested solutions. All of this is very gray and muddied. And you have to really find your moral compass in those regards.
Yeah. In my work, I keep the human right of mobility very much central and try to make decisions off of that. And it still doesn't completely click me in the ear, in the clear. I'm always making on retrospect, not great decisions all the time. For me, for my local environment. But just like we can create any group that says, yes, I'm doing a good job, I've found that if I'm not very, very sensitive, given my social identities, I can just step all over people and not really even see it.
I do feel like morality can be so fluid because what I think is moral might not be what you think is moral. And so that conversation and not being judgmental about it is so important. So that is our 10 minutes. I'm going to cut us off there. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. It was a tough one and I appreciate it. I'll talk to you all again soon.